Have you ever noticed how some older people can sit quietly in a room, say almost nothing, and still somehow control the entire vibe? That's the silent generation. They don't argue loudly. They don't overshare. They don't post emotional quotes online. But when they speak, everyone listens. Today, let's talk about the psychology of the silent generation, the people born roughly between the late 1920s and mid-1940s, and why their mindset is so different from ours. First, understand the world they grew up in. They were raised during or right after the Great Depression and World War II. Imagine growing up in a time where money was scarce, jobs were uncertain, and the world literally felt unstable. No social media, no motivational reels, no follow your passion speeches. For them, survival came first. When your childhood includes ration cards, strict households, and real global fear, your brain adapts differently. You learn to value stability over excitement, security over self-expression, loyalty over freedom. That's why many from the silent generation stayed in one job for 30 or 40 years. Today, we switch jobs like we switch phone covers. But for them, a stable paycheck wasn't boring, it was safety. Psychologically, this generation developed high emotional restraint. They were taught not to complain, not to talk back, not to show too much emotion publicly. You might hear them say things like, "Just deal with it," or "It's not that serious." It's not that they didn't feel deeply. They just learned to process emotions privately. Think about it. If you grew up in a time where talking too much could cause problems, or where showing weakness wasn't safe, your brain would build walls too. And here's something interesting. They tend to respect authority more than later generations. Why? Because they grew up in highly structured environments, strict parents, strict schools, strict workplaces. Rules weren't suggestions, they were the system. So while millennials question everything and Gen Z challenges everything, the silent generation often believed in fitting into the system rather than fighting it. But don't mistake silence for weakness. Psychologically, silence can be power. When you don't speak unnecessarily, people assume you're thinking deeply. When you don't react immediately, people assume you're emotionally strong. Many members of this generation mastered patience because they had no choice. Waiting in lines, saving money slowly, writing letters instead of sending instant messages. Delayed gratification was normal for them. Today, we get frustrated if Wi-Fi takes 10 seconds to connect. They waited weeks for letters to arrive. That difference shapes the brain. Another key trait? Loyalty. They are loyal to family, friends, companies, traditions. Sometimes even when those things don't deserve loyalty anymore. Because in their psychological framework, commitment equals character. Leaving too quickly felt like failure. Now let's talk about communication style. The silent generation often communicates indirectly. They won't say, "I'm upset." They might say, "It's fine," in a very specific tone that means it's definitely not fine. Emotional expression was subtle. Body language mattered more. Tone mattered more. Actions mattered more. If they woke up early every day to work hard and never complained, that was their love language. Not, "I'm proud of you," but making sure the bills were paid. And here's where it gets a little funny. You know how they sometimes reuse plastic containers for years? Or keep random screws just in case? That's not just being old school. That's scarcity psychology. When you grow up with limited resources, your brain wires itself to avoid waste at all costs. Throwing something away feels almost wrong. Their mindset says, "What if we need this later?" Our mindset says, "Amazon will deliver it tomorrow." Huge difference. But here's the deeper layer. Because they suppressed emotions for so long, some members of the silent generation struggled with expressing vulnerability. Therapy wasn't normal. Talking about trauma wasn't normal. You just moved on. So many of them carried unspoken stories, war memories, financial fears, family struggles. Silence was protection. At the same time, that silence created resilience. They endured things that would trend on social media for months, and they just kept going. No dramatic announcements, no public breakdowns, just quiet strength. Now, does that mean their way is better? Not necessarily. Every generation adapts to its environment, but there's something powerful about learning from them. From them, we can learn patience in a world of instant gratification. We can learn loyalty in a world of temporary connections. We can learn emotional control in a world that reacts instantly. And maybe, just maybe, they can learn from us too, that it's okay to speak up, to set boundaries, to say, "I need help." Because silence is powerful, but connection is powerful too. The psychology of the silent generation is built on survival, structure, restraint, and resilience. They weren't loud revolutionaries. They were quiet stabilizers. They built systems, raised families, showed up every day. And even if they didn't say much, their actions spoke volumes. So next time you see someone from that generation sitting quietly, not saying much, don't assume there's nothing going on in their mind. Chances are, there's a lifetime of discipline, sacrifice, and wisdom behind that silence. And sometimes, the strongest voice in the room is the one that doesn't need to shout.